Good afternoon, Campbell McCrary here, Amvest Capital in New York City. Welcome to the Amvest Capital Inc. live webinar with Silver One Resources Inc. Silver One trades on the venture as SVE, Sierra Victor Echo, and on the OTCQX as SLVRF, Sierra Lima Victor Rio Foxtrot. We hope you enjoy today's program. It will be available in on-demand replay about an hour after we wrap up. You get it in an email, and we'll also send it. You also can go to amvestcapital.com/replays and get a head start on viewing it and sharing the link with others you think might be interested. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management and corporate finance firm focused solely on the natural resource sector. You've all heard that before, and you've all heard this one as well. This call is most definitely for informational purposes only. Please read this carefully. Very pleased to have with us today Greg Crow, who is the president and CEO of Silver One, more than 30 years of experience in the exploration and mining sector. And many of you will know him from 2002 to 2015 as the president and CEO of Entrée Gold, which he was instrumental in transforming Entrée from early stage exploration to an advanced development mining project and joint venture with Rio Tinto and its partner Turquoise Hill Resources, which was Ivanhoe, of course. Following the formal presentation, again, members of Amvest Capital will be asking questions of management, and just shoot them in the question pane there, and we will be asking them in real time. So there you are. You have the floor. You take as long as you want. Maybe not more than 20 minutes, Greg, though. And we'll see you on the other side and hit you with questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Campbell. And I'm just trying to get there it is. My screen is up. So yeah, thank you very much, you and Amvest, for hosting this. And for those listeners out there who are familiar with the company, this might seem a bit repetitive, but we did put out some interesting news on our flagship property, Candelaria past producing silver mine in Nevada. We put that out about a week ago. It was the completion of a large drill program, and I'll talk about those results in a little bit more detail. But first, I'm going to start by giving a quick overview of the company, talk a little bit about why silver, then we'll get into Candelaria, then we'll talk about our other two assets that are more exploration oriented, and then we'll wrap up with a little bit about a share structure and some of the investors in the company. So that said, company started in mid-2016. It started by acquiring 3 Mexican silver assets from a company called First Mining Finance, and that is a company that's one of the companies in the stable of companies run by a fellow by the name of Keith Neumeyer, who also essentially runs a very successful silver producing company called First Majestic. And Keith and a lot of his senior management are big shareholders in Silver One as well. That said, as time went on, we wanted to look for something more advanced to bring into the company, and we targeted the past producing Candelaria silver mine in the state of Nevada. Photograph just came up on the screen. We entered into an agreement with Silver Standard, then the owner, in late 2016, early 2017, with the ability to acquire a 100% interest in this project with no royalties back to Silver Standard. There's going to be some forward-looking statements in this presentation, so please take notice of that. So not only am I going to talk about the Candelaria past producing silver mine, I'm also going to be talking about an earlier stage, very high grade epithermal silver, gold, copper vein system in eastern Nevada, and then I'm going to be talking about an extremely high grade opportunity in the state of Arizona, right near the town of Globe, Arizona, the copper producing area. We do have good financial backing. We completed a $9.5 million financing last year. Of that, Eric Sprott, famed mining investor, put in $5 million of the $9.5 million, and that was the third time that he had invested into our company. So let's talk about silver and why silver. most important thing about silver is not only it is a precious metal, but it's also predominantly an industrial metal. So it can perform quite well in good economic times, and it can perform quite well in poor economic times as people look to go into silver and gold and precious metals as, shall we say, a hedge against uncertainty. But the biggest thing about silver is very important in key new industries like electric vehicles, solar panels. It's in all of your computers and cell phones, lots of other uses for it, still abundantly used in some of the more traditional sectors like jewelry, silverware, etc. And as I said, it is an investment as well. It produces somewhere between 700 and 800 million ounces annually. It's been in decline in terms of the production for the last 4 years, and increasing uses are looking forward. We had a little bit of a shakeup over the last week with respect to some uncertainty with respect to growth around the world, with COVID still rearing its ugly head on a periodic basis. But overall, I think with the trillions of dollars in stimulus funding and throughout the world, and as we come out of this pandemic, you're going to see, I think, quite a bit of economic growth and possibly inflation, and that's going to be good for silver in terms of the demand on silver, but also people using it as an investment and hedge against inflation as well. And what's interesting about bull markets with respect to precious metals, silver tends to have a larger percentage gain than gold in these precious metal bull markets, and no exception to today as well. As we've seen since last year, the dropping of the gold-silver ratio from a record high of 126 down to about currently 70 to 72 on the ratio scale. So we're seeing silver performing quite well with respect to gold, and it's certainly hanging in there despite a little bit of a downturn earlier this week. So let's go talk about the projects. I'm going to start talking about Candelaria, give a quick overview of the project, and then I'll talk about some of the results of the recent drill program that we completed. It was an early producer, started in 1864 up until 1959. It produced from near surface high-grade silver oxide veins, underground mining, produced at an average rate of 1,250 grams per ton of silver, one of the highest grade producers in the state of Nevada. 70s, 80s, and 90s, it converted into big open pit mining. Kinross was the last operator. They shut down in 97 with the collapse of silver prices well under $5 per ounce silver. Started closure, sold it off to Silver Standard. They did a drill program 2001, 2002, and they outlined fairly sizable, then 43101 compliant resource. They did some studies, but with silver prices still languishing well under $5, they decided to move on to other projects. They took the company in a different direction, became a gold mining company. We approached them in late 2016, entered in an agreement in early 2017 with the ability to acquire a 100% interest in the project, no royalties back to Silver Standard. At the time, Silver Standard was rebranding their company, and they were in essence focusing on gold and selling off a lot of their old silver assets. We got a good deal on the project, and they actually changed their name to SSR Mining. So what's this resource that they outlined back in 2002? We deem it historic today because it is old, so we can no longer call it 43101 compliant based on the new regulations, but then measured and indicated resources totaling about 44 million ounces of silver with an additional 35 million ounces of silver at the inferred level. These are in-ground resources. But Kinross left a lot of silver on the old historic leach pads as well. And we ended up drilling those leach pads and put out an updated 43101 compliant resource last year. And essentially, this is what it is. On the one big leach pad that you see in this photograph, leach pad number 1. Leach pad number 2 is hidden in behind this hill here. Essentially, leach pad number 1 contains about 30 million ounces of silver. Leach pad number 2, about 15 million ounces of silver. And it's essentially at an average grade of about 42 grams, or about an ounce and a half silver. Now, why are these grades important, and why do we feel that we might be able to think about reprocessing the silver from these heap leach pads? If we look at another operation in northern Nevada, it's called Cora's Rochester Mine. They are actually mining silver oxide materials similar to what came out of our Candelaria pits, and they're processing it on big leach pads similar to Candelaria, but their average head grade is about 15 grams per ton silver, and they're incurring mining costs, and they're only getting about 50 to 55% recoveries. So can we make a go of this? Stay tuned. We are doing some metallurgical testing, and I'll tell you a little bit about how we want to move forward with the potential reprocessing of the silver at Candelaria, and looking at other big opportunities as well. But the thing about Candelaria as well, and what we inherited, was a superb infrastructure. We're looking at the main highway that joins Reno to Las Vegas right here, 2 miles of paved road past that hidden leach pad number 2, past leach pad number 1 to the old processing site, 2 big open pits on the northeast down dip side, that historic resource outlined by Silver Standard. We have a power line that actually comes in, it's connected, and we do pay our monthly power bills, and we got 2 water wells, each capable of 500 to 700 gallons per minute. So we have all of the ingredients necessary for the potential rehabilitation of this old producing mine site. Now let's talk about some of the work that we've done recently and some of the recent news that we put out. We did some early drilling, diamond drilling in 2020, and then we initiated a 15,000 meter reverse circulation and diamond drilling program. There were 3 main goals to that program, and I think that we achieved a very good success on each of those 3 goals. The first goal was to look at the down dip extensions to the mineralized system that was outside the old resource that Silver Standard look at. And we found that there's some exceedingly high-grade pockets of mineralization that's starting to define a coherent body that could be accessible by underground mining, potentially ramping down from the base of the pit into this zone. We put out news recently with values up to over 1,000 grams per ton silver and 1.5 grams gold over 4.5 meters within 26 meters of 250 grams per ton silver and 0.4 grams per ton gold right in this area here, and that coincides with other values in the thousands of grams per ton silver with 1 to 2.5 grams per ton gold over widths up to 30 meters. So there's quite a little zone down there, and we're going to continue to evaluate that as time goes on. We do plan to do more drilling this year. The second big goal of that 15,000 meter program, which we just finalized and put out the last news last week, was we looked at extensions to the near surface silver oxide mineralization that could be accessible by easy open pit extensions. We've extended that zone for up to 500 meters to the west and only 100 meters to the east, but it remains open both east and west. So what we want to look at is doing some metallurgical testing on this material, and the concept is can we combine that with some of the heap leach material in terms of increasing grades and potential recoveries and the overall economics. We are going to be piecing all that together, and our goal is to put out an economic study on potentially reprocessing the heaps and/or the heaps plus the extensions to the open pit mineralization towards the end of this year. Now, we had a third goal in that 15,000 meter program, which adds a new dimension to Candelaria, something that was never really looked at. This is a magnetometer survey, airborne survey that we completed just over a year ago, and essentially huge mag high to the north in purples and reds, blues, greens, yellows, and oranges, mag low. Major structural control on the mineralization, fits very well right along that break in the magnetometer, heads off to the east side of the property. Hochschild was doing some drilling off to the east about a year and a half ago. And what we're looking at is the two big open pits, the leach pads, but what are these big anomalies sitting in through here? We did some IP surveys, outlined some interesting targets to drill, and we put in some deep drill holes in this area here. There were some samples on the old added dumps in this area here that had abundant copper, something which really wasn't talked a lot about at Candelaria, as they were focusing on mining the silver, shallow silver oxide ore. So we put in one hole, and hole 81 actually came back, and we intersected over 350 meters of essentially porphyry style alteration that went from classic coprolitic alteration down dip to potassic alteration with secondary biotite. Some of the dump samples here have abundant chalcopyrite, and these samples were running up to 2.5% copper with values up to 25 grams per ton silver and about 0.67 grams per ton gold. Deeper down, we're getting tourmaline, we're getting some narrow veins that are containing up to 6 grams per ton gold as well. That's only one hole, but we think there is a system down there. We need to do some more work, see if we can trace it. So here's that sample again, and here are those values. I said 2.5, but it was really 2.76% copper. And what we want to do for the rest of the year is we're going to be doing that metallurgical testing on the extension to the open pit mineralization, looking at combining that material with the heaps, and we want to aim to put out an economic study for reprocessing that silver by the end of the year. We also want to look at this potential underground resource for future extraction considerations, perhaps ramping down from the base of the pit, and then we want to test this underground porphyry idea, and if there is a porphyry system under there, then essentially, as I said, that will redefine Candelaria, another component that has never been looked at in the past. So that's what we're doing at Candelaria. Now we've got two other projects, and I'm going to talk first and foremost about our Cherokee project in eastern Nevada. We were doing some research, and we found in an old mining journal, Cherokee was mentioned as having produced in thousands of grams per ton of silver back in the late 1800s. We went and had a look at it just south of a big old mining camp called Pioche. Pioche started in the mid-1800s in near surface epithermal silver gold veins, but when they got into the underlying limestones at depth, they intersected big carbonate replacement deposits with lead, zinc, silver, gold, and copper. So we went and we looked at Cherokee. The old Cherokee mine sits right in through here, and we started walking the veins. We traced them for over 12 kilometers or 9 miles along strike, found a second vein system that's also looking very promising. The ground was open. We staked everything. We bought the old patents, and we bought an artesian water well just off the claim here to the north. Now, the only recorded drilling in the entire area was in this area of Blue Nose in the southeast corner of the project. That was drilled in the 70s and 80s for deep porphyry molybdenum deposit. They didn't get through the overlying limestones. These are the exact same age limestones as the Pioche camp to the north. But we do see abundant alteration and veining kind of outlining around where this potential deep buried intrusive might be. And then we see these big rich veins shooting off to the northwest. Now we did some near surface sampling up at Cherokee, southeast Cherokee, and the Hidden Treasure, also did Mojoto, but I'm going to show you this area and this area with some of the surface sampling that we did. In essence, right at the old Cherokee mine, we're seeing some surface values up to 950 grams per ton silver, 4.8% copper. We're seeing some nice values down here up to values such as 1100 grams per ton silver, 2.3% copper. You'll see multiple ones in the hundreds of grams per ton silver. The system carries on under the overburden to the north and to the south as well. These are the old patented claims that we bought, and we do plan on getting in there and drilling some of these rich copper silver veins this year, so stay tuned. Just need to do a bit more work in getting that prepped and getting the drill lined up. So down at the hidden treasure area, we see a wide zone of multiple veins. Haven't done enough sampling, but there's more veins that need to be sampled, but we are getting individual values up to essentially 1,800 grams per ton silver and 2 grams per ton gold. We're seeing copper drop off and gold coming into the system. We think that if this is an epithermal system with all the earmarks, we see good things like boiling point textures, etc., then essentially this is probably higher in the system than up at Cherokee, where we're seeing the presence of more base metals, particularly copper. So we did fly the project, airborne mag survey, and this is what we found. Interesting, where they were drilling for deep buried porphyry moly deposit, there is this huge mag high with all of this near surface alteration and veining kind of surrounding it. Remains an interesting target. Here's the hidden treasure, Johnny. We want to do some more work there this year, see if we can upgrade that to a drill target with more surface sampling. That's a good silver gold zone. And then we want to get in and drill the Cherokee project itself. So that's Cherokee and what we want to do. Now let's talk about Phoenix Silver. It is essentially outside the town of Globe, Arizona. It came to us from some prospectors. They essentially looked at a project just to the north of the big copper mining area, to the south and west of Globe. And there's an old silver camp just to the north and east. They said that they had this project that was almost completely covered by overburden, and they used their metal detectors, and they actually uncovered these large silver fragments, which we believe have not traveled very far. They're very angular and unabraded. This big one here weighed in at 417 pounds. We didn't actually sample it because it is a collector's item, but we did specific gravity determinations, and we estimate this one to contain up to 70% silver. Now, the project's located just outside the town of Globe, just to the northeast, about a 20-minute drive. There's some old producing silver mines up to the northeast. That's the main regional structural trend. And what we're looking at here is reports of native silver in some of these old mines up and through here. And here's the big porphyry copper producing area, all the big companies, Freeport-McMoRan, BHP, Rio Tinto, etc. But what about our project? Well, we did analyze some of these smaller silver vein fragments that were given to us by the prospector. This one here in particular, that's all native silver that you're looking at, all that shiny material. This one here actually assayed just under 50% silver, so 459,000 grams per ton silver, or 14,500 ounces per ton, multiple other fragments as well. So what's our job? Our job is to try and find the source of these rich silver veins. These silver veins are set in a very interesting environment geologically. They are Precambrian or Proterozoic in age, hosted by diabase very similar to the rich cobalt producing silver camp in northern Ontario that is getting a lot of activity recently. Very similar style of silver veining. And here is where these fragments were found upslope. We've done surface geophysics, airborne geophysics, and we've done soil sampling, and we believe we've identified some interesting potential anomalies up there that we want to drill. We've applied for a drill permit, taking us a little bit longer than we had hoped, but stay tuned. We hope to get that drill permit in the next or not too distant future, and then we'll get in and see if we can find the source of that rich vein material. We're finding more interesting things up at Mexico Mine, and we're finding some more stuff up to the north as well. Veins to the south are interesting in that they have quite a strong component of copper, lead, zinc and gold, a little bit of moly. We think there's probably a bit of an overprinting from the porphyry event just to the south where all those active mines are. And our neighbors to the west entered into an agreement with South 32 of Australia, and we're drilling for porphyry-related targets as well. So it's an interesting camp, lots of upside opportunity. Stay tuned, we're going to get active in there as soon as we can. So what are we doing here in summary? In essence, at Candelaria, continue with our metallurgical testing. Want to put out an economic study by the end of the year. Want to do another drill program, see if we can extend the mineralization even further out from those big open pits and test that porphyry target idea down deep. We're looking at Cherokee, doing some more surface mapping and sampling, particularly in the Johnny and the Hidden Treasure area. Can we upgrade that to drill targets? And then we want to get a drill in there and try and test some depth on those rich silver copper veins at the old Cherokee mine itself. Phoenix Silver will continue with some mapping and sampling. We keep finding more interesting areas, and then we do have a drill permit applied for. We're just waiting on getting that. So that's what we're doing. Here's what how the company has performed since its inception in mid-2016. We've got about 11, just over 11 million in the treasury as of June 30th, and we've been paying for those drill programs, etc. Eric Sprott, largest shareholder, he participated in the last 3 financing private placements, and we do trade very good volumes on both the US and the Canadian exchange. So that's the Silver One story, and should there be any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, let's jump in. Do you have any permits yet, or only just applied the permit for Phoenix?
Applied for the permit. We do not have the permit yet. We're waiting on that permit.
Okay, and can you assess the effect of COVID on your past plan and where you are now?
Yeah, we were fairly active all through the COVID pandemic. Some of the subcontractors of the drilling company did come down with COVID and had to take a break, but we never had any major outbreaks at any of our sites. So we've been fairly fortunate.
Are you able to travel to Nevada on a regular basis?
I have not been traveling to Nevada on a regular basis myself personally, mainly because of the restrictions at the Canadian-US border. That's starting to open up, and as soon as I can get down there, hopefully in August, I'll be starting those travels again. But we do have good people in place. My vice president of exploration lives in Tennessee, and he's been going back and forth and running the operations down there. And we do have people in Tucson and Reno as well that have been doing a lot of the work on behalf. So I'm looking forward to getting down there again.
Are you working with an engineering firm yet to prepare your upcoming end-of-year study?
Just starting to do that. We've just got all of the drill data back. We're putting that together. We're having a private contractor look at essentially piecing all that together, getting the resource outlined, and then we'll engage the contractor, the engineering group, to piece together the economic study. And we've got a couple of groups that we're looking at.
We see you monetizing assets. Are you always on the look to acquire more assets?
We're not adverse to acquiring more assets. If it's a very interesting asset with lots of upside potential, we prefer things now that are going to be more advanced, near production. But if an opportunity came to us, such as the Phoenix Silver project, with extremely good exploration upside, we'd consider something like that.
Can you go over the land tenures at each of your projects?
Land tenures, okay. Well, first of all, at Candelaria, a lot of it is old patented ground around the pits themselves that came from, you know, early days, and Kinross, and we inherited all that from Silver Standard. The area to the north where the heaps are, that's BLM ground. Over in Cherokee, the main vein Cherokee itself is on patented claims, and we're going to be drilling there in the not too distant future. The bulk of the ground is BLM, and then down in Phoenix Silver, that's forestry ground. So, so we deal through the forestry service there.
Can you go over the flow sheet that was used at Candelaria, and would you use the same flow sheet for processing today?
The old flow sheets, well, we do something a little different, and the reason is because, you know, Kinross did process some of those heaps there. So we're looking at reprocessing from previously processed heaps. And what we're going to finding now is we need to grind a little bit finer. So the material sitting on the heaps is about 3/4 of an inch in size, and we need to grind that down. We're looking at a couple of different techniques. One is potentially using high pressure grinder rollers, HPGR, which Coeur has put in at Rochester, and they're having good success in increasing their recoveries. We would essentially look at grinding it down to about 2 millimeters in size, and then agglomerating it back up to about 1 centimeter, and then processing on new leach pads. And then if we can improve the recoveries and grades by mixing fresh material near the margins of the open pit, then we'll try and do that. But that's part of an upcoming economic study. So it won't be quite the same as the old cash flow sheets, but it'll be something similar.
You always get this question. It's kind of tough to answer, but, you know, very ballpark. When might you be having revenue at Candelaria, or when might be first pour? Are we talking months, years?
Yeah, well, always a difficult question to answer when you don't have all the answers, but I guess if you want to look at it, if we are successful in getting an economic study out by the end of the year, we've already been in discussions with both the BLM and the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, two of the main groups. They've essentially both told us that, look, you've got a disturbed site. It was never fully reclaimed. All the permits that Kinross had in place are still active, but they do need to be updated. And they essentially said that they estimated that would be a matter of months, not years, which is extremely important. So if everything panned out, possibly 1.5 to 2 years, we could think about reprocessing the heaps and/or the heaps plus a little bit of mining on from the extensions to the open pit.
All right, thank you very much. Stu, pass it to you.
Thanks for the update, Greg.
Yeah.
So on the drill permit status, how do you have permits across all 3 projects? Well,
no permit.
Well, Arizona's is pending, but the other.
Pending, yeah. And Candelaria, we have to apply for a new permit. We just completed the 15,000 meter drill program. We haven't done that application yet because we're just reassessing all of the data from that program so we can design new targets. But the BLM has been extremely expedient in granting us our permits in the past. So once we get our act together, it's just a matter of a few weeks to probably get that permit in place.
Great. And then the PEA you're working on, that be on, would your view be doing it on the current resource, or would you envision doing, you know, further studies on a large resource after another drill program later this year?
Well, the reason we can't use the previous resource because it's not deemed to be 43-101 compliant. So we'd probably do it on another resource, and in order to make it economic, we'll probably just look at the area that we want to start processing. So the resource that we would put out on it might be a little bit smaller actually than the historic resource, but as we continue drilling and expanding mineralization, we anticipate bringing in a lot of that material into a new updated resource down the road. And that's part of the design of doing the additional drill program at Candelaria this fall.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. And the porphyry model at Cherokee, are there any kind of analogous projects in the area that can kind of confirm theory of the, and geophysical anomalies?
No, I can't say that there are analogous ones, but there are certainly in Pioche, there's big carbonate replacement deposits. And where did those fluids come from? But a lot of times you'll see the association between deep buried porphyries and near surface vein systems. And we see it at Candelaria, a potential association there. We see it down at Phoenix Silver, just on the margin of that big porphyry camp with the printing of some of the older veins. And then we see it at Cherokee where, they were drilling for a porphyry moly back in the 70s and 80s. And now we're seeing these great big, huge, rich veins that were never, ever drilled, but we want to get in there and drill them. So there seems to be an association. Is there an actual example in terms of a near mine? No.
Okay, and then one last question for me before I pass to Adam. If you touch on just the recent appointment of Leonard Harris and his background, and
yeah,
excited for him to join.
Yeah, we decided to have him join. We've been in conversation with him in the past. He's an older gentleman who's retired, but he's had a vast amount of experience. He's worked for not only the major companies, spent a lot of time with Newmont. He's a metallurgist by trade. He's very innovative, shall we say, with embracing new ideas. He's worked for many junior companies as well. Some of those he worked with Brad Cook at a couple of his companies in the past, being a director. He worked for Coronado Resources, etc. And he's been very valuable. He's been helping us out with giving us advice with respect to how best to try and improve recoveries and new ideas for testing at Candelaria. And he's just overall an extremely competent, knowledgeable individual. And we needed somebody like that to guide us through the metallurgical steps, because I'm not an engineer. I'm a geologist by training, and he's been invaluable with respect to helping us.
Great, thanks for that. I'll pass on to Adam.
Okay.
Thanks, Stu. And thanks for pointing that out. I didn't see that Len joined you guys. That's great news.
Yeah, we put that out a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks ago, I think. Do you know Len personally?
Well, I sat next to him at a dinner once, so he told me lots of stories.
Oh, interesting person, no question.
Yes. Very much so, very much so. Quick question, Greg, just about, can you go over the royalty situation at each of your properties, and then
Sure.
And then maybe just in general your overall attitude, towards royalties, as far as if you're willing to use them as a source of capital.
Yeah, essentially at Candelaria, there's a small claim that harkens back to, I think it's Tech Corporation, a small claim to the north and east of the pits there. It's a very small claim, but there is a 1 or 2% NSR on it or something or other. So if we're fortunate enough to find a lot of mineralization up there, it would be a reasonable royalty on a very small portion of any production situation. So we're not too concerned about that. There's also a waste dump fee that has to be paid on one of the big waste dumps to the north and east of the pit, but we actually wouldn't probably add material to that, so it's not going to affect us. We'd probably take the material off there because we're finding a lot of silver in there, so we'd probably reprocess from it. So we're not too concerned about, and as I said, the deal we did with Silver Standard, no royalties back to Silver Standard, no backing. So Candelaria is in essence royalty free. Cherokee, there is no royalty. We own 100%. We staked the ground. We bought the patent, so that one's royalty free. Phoenix Silver, there is I think it's a 1% royalty due on some of the internal claims that were the original ones that were part of the deal with the prospectors. That has a buyout, I think about $1.5 million. So we're not too concerned about that, but the expanded staking that we've done in the area is royalty free. what's my attitude towards royalties? I'm not adverse to royalties, but I'm not adverse to doing any deal that I think is advantageous to our shareholders. So I would never close the door on a royalty, but the terms would have to be favorable to our investors in order to consider one. And the same would be said with respect to a streaming deal, and the same would be said with respect to a joint venture, etc.
And then, Greg, maybe you could just talk a little bit about, where your company feels comfortable as far as explorer, developer, producer.
Can you say that again, Adam? You broke up right in the middle of that question.
Sure. Sorry. Just Greg, where your company feels comfortable as far as their core competencies, as far as being an explorer, a developer, or make it, or actually transition to be a producer.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a geologist. My comfort zone is in essence, shall we say, exploration / pre-development. But we do have the talent. We just brought in Leonard Harris to give us a hand with the metallurgical. We were a little bit light on the metallurgical side, and we do have a lot of assistance with respect to essentially the development side right now. In terms of a production going forward, if we were to make that leap, I think there's some pretty competent people out there who would love to get involved in a project of the magnitude that Candelaria could come to. Hello?
All right.
Okay.
With that, let me pass it back to Campbell for more questions from the audience.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you, everyone. Are the staff all vaccinated?
Everybody I know of is now vaccinated. We had one individual who did not get vaccinated, and they did come down with COVID, but that was one of the subcontractors. So had a little bit of a rough time, but they pulled through, so that's very good. But all of the key people in the company are vaccinated. I'm double vaccinated with Pfizer, and that's why I'm going to be able to come down and get through the Canada-US border and start visiting the properties in Arizona.
Great.
And in Nevada as well, sorry.
Before we close, if you could just take us through again 6, 12, 18 month timeline and milestones. So
Sure.
as in for investors, as we kind of
Sure.
see what to look for and your progress.
Okay, so 6 months, we're looking at continuing the metallurgical testing at Candelaria. We have a drill permit in the works with the government on Phoenix Silver. I can't guarantee when that will come, but once that comes, we'll move a drill into there. We do plan on drilling Cherokee as soon as we get things organized, so that should be sooner than later, and that'll be drilling the patents, the big rich silver copper veins there that have never been drilled. And Candelaria, we plan on putting another drill on the property probably in Q3 of this year, maybe early Q4, just depending upon when we can get a drill and all the permits in place, etc. And then we want to put, I guess, between 6 and 12 months looking at trying to get that economic study out on Candelaria, and anything beyond that will essentially be dependent upon the results of all these other programs. If we're successful, and then we're going to be continuing on and continuing to develop the projects as long as we can.
Great. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please share your feedback on your log out and or in the follow-up email. You'll be able to get a copy of this event in that email and at amvestcapital.com/replays. Very simple there. And if you have any more questions, you can also send those in, and we'll get them over to Greg. And Greg, kind of throw it back to you to close us. And what's the best way to reach you if someone wants to chat more?
Yeah, well, the best way to reach me is right here. Gary Lindsay handles all the investor relations and he passes everything right on to me. You can email me directly at ggcrow@silver1.com. That's 2 G's at the beginning, otherwise it will bounce. And I'm certainly interested in hearing from anybody who has any questions regarding any of our projects, etc. And I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen to that. And despite the little hiccup with respect to the silver prices over the last week or two with new fears regarding the advancement of the economy, we are marching forward. Lots of news to come out, lots of exploration that's happening on all of our projects. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.